Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another Bowers News Corner, where I cover some sort of thing going on in the tabletop gaming news world that I found interesting. And today I did a Kickstarter critique for the new Harvest, a farming game, which has raised $268,000 from Keymaster Games. So I was doing the Kickstarter project, and I happened to stumble across this particular message from Carolyn Lindsay. This company is currently in litigation. The company is in danger of being dissolved, wondering how it will be possible for this game to be produced by a non-existent company. The current leadership at Keymaster should be making their customers aware of their ongoing legal troubles, because I don't feel like they did a very good job of doing that in their Kickstarter, and I can understand why they probably don't want to. The product of their own poor management and greed. Unfortunately, many loyal customers are coming to Keymaster because they've fallen in love with the products and the ethos of the company. Most of that is due to the creator and founder's vision for a game company that brought people together around good art and quality time. Now that the founder has been forced out, his values of community, integrity, and honesty have as well. Do not give them any money. Don't participate in their corporate greed and dishonesty. Wow, that sounds like a plant if I have ever seen one. Now, Keymaster Games responded to this. Howdy! Thanks for backing Harvest. Actually, this one is to Maria. Do we have any information about this? Like links, we responded to a request for information about this below. Yeah, it's really far below. In fact, where they pretty much reported a comment from the creator of Keymaster Games' wife. You can't see the comment, though, because they tried to block it with the Kickstarter community guidelines, which never looks good. We cannot comment on the specifics of litigation. Some comments have been submitted for review to blah, 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 blah. But luckily, I'm not involved in the lawsuit, so I thought I'd go and try and figure it out. I found a thing on Board Game Geek that took us to the Clerk of Superior State Court, Athens, Clark County, Georgia, and I sorted through 66 pages of legal documents to bring you what I think is a pretty interesting story. And by the end of it, I think you'll probably have thoughts one way or the other. And I'll let you know my thoughts as we progress through this. Now, I do want to start, before we get into any of this, all of this is purely hearsay. It's he said, she said, that sort of thing. So everything you see here, take it with a grain of salt. It might not be true because, in fact, there are people, one side saying one thing, one side saying another thing, but let's get into it. And I'm not going to go through all 66 pages, but I did do a Cliff Notes version of what I thought were the most interesting things going on in there. So first, let's just start from the beginning. Keymaster Games was formed in 2015 by Kyle Key, aka Keymaster. And at that point, he was 100% of the company. However, in 2017, a guy named Maddox Schuler joined in, and he now has 39.9% of the company. Kyle Key has currently 40.1% of the company. And then in 2018, someone named Matt Aiken joined, who now has 20% of the company. So it looks like that essentially when Maddox first joined Keymaster Games, it essentially was that Kyle, the person who owns Keymaster Games, or did at the beginning, had 50.1%, and Maddox had 49.9%, for obvious reasons. However, when Matt jumped in, he got 20%, and it looks like they both just gave him 10%, which now means that if Matt and Maddox combined their percentage, they would have a more percentage of the company than Kyle. And if this sounds like a lot of straight to DVD, movies and TV shows, that's because, yeah, that's kind of what it sounds like. So that's what's going on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through this legal document, and I've spotlighted some of the things that I found the most interesting. So first we're going to go to 9 right here, because the way that the legal document works pretty much is that things are broken up like this. So this, I'm just going to give you some cliff notes. So Key founded Keymaster around 2015. We already talked about this. But the general gist is that Aiken, the person that owns 20% of it, was named CEO in 2022. However, Key denies this. We'll get into that a little bit more later. But let's get into what this is about. So on or about May 19, 2018, Key, Schuler, and Aiken executed and delivered the operating agreement. Now, this is actually, the entire operating agreement is in here. It's like the last 10 to 15 pages, and it goes over pretty much, it's a standard legal contract. Like, what happens in this scenario, in this scenario, in this scenario. Don't share secrets. Don't spend over $100 without approval. If you do, you're pretty much going to get sued. All the typical legal jargon here. So, nothing else really I felt like was pretty spectacular or shocking from 13 to 27. But then when we get to 28, we start to see where the fractures come in this company. So pretty much what they said is Key has co-opted and held hostage various programs and processes for this company for his own use, including, without limitation, the company's account with Shopify, Google Admin, GoDaddy, and other online partners, which prevents Keymaster and the majority members from utilizing these platforms and services, which, if you're running a business, that is a very big deal. And we're going to start talking. So right now, we're coming at it from the perspective of the two people who are essentially suing Key and saying, we want him out of the company. And they're saying, this is why we want him out of the company. So we're starting off by saying he is withholding this they use the word hostage. They're holding it hostage. Okay, and then we get to 29. So Key has controlled and failed to provide information regarding the company's reservations with and participation in Gen Con 2023. That's a big deal. The largest tabletop gaming convention in North America, scheduled for August 3rd through 6th. And pretty much he would just not give them the information. He, quote, intentionally blocked them from getting that information. And I will say, he sounds like a child, at least from their perspective. And that's one thing I always want to mention. I'm not saying anything's gospel here, but he really sounds like a child the further and further we get onto this. So then 30, we talk about some of the things that he done that he shouldn't had not have done. Key has utilized... allegedly, has utilized company funds to pay for services and expenses that were not approved by the members, nor related in any way to the company business, including but not limited to purchases at his gym, which he characterized as research, and an unapproved flight to Boston and related travel expenses. So far, we haven't gotten to the blockbuster stuff yet, but we will get there, I promise. It's going to get real ugly real fast, and it's in fact true. Some of this has been confirmed by Key, but we'll get into this. So we get to 31. He started attending meetings that he typically did not. Key has attended meetings with Keymaster employees, vendors, and partners when he rarely, if ever, attended such meetings in the past. So he started coming to meetings that he did not normally come to, and he was disruptive in some of the meetings, and mostly sat in silence, declined to respond to questions posed to him, and refused to even speak, once again, like a child, if in fact this is all true. Moving on through 32, Key has rejected any and all attempts by the majority members to address and resolve the issues identified above. So he's pretty much like, no, we're not talking about any of this. Continuing onward. We move on to 34 right here, and pursuant to paragraph, so after 420, things really hit the fan. And this is where I want to read this whole thing, because you're going to be like, really? Did this actually happen? So pretty much, Key misappropriated master trade secrets, Keymaster trade secrets, and discloses trade secrets and confident information to Keymaster competitors, allegedly. So after post-mediation, so they tried to get together, they tried to have something come down on 420, and they tried to work things out, and he said, I need a week to figure this out, and to maybe come back to you, and he ended up just not responding at all. And after that, well, let's just read 26 verbatim. Two of Keymaster's largest and most direct competitors are Ravensburger AG, a German gaming company with significant operations in the United States. They are massive. And the OP, also referred to as USAopoly, another gaming company with a substantial U.S. revenue. Those are both facts. Both companies compete directly in the specific gaming markets targeted by Keymaster. Both Ravensburger and the OP have contractual relationships with Target, one of Keymaster's most important and substantial business partners. So if you're not that in the know in the hobby, one of the biggest and best things you can do as a publisher, just period, is get yourself into a big box store. The Barnes & Nobles, the Walmarts, the Targets, the Myers, that sort of thing. So essentially, what he did was give them information on or about June 20 to 2023 during a routine audit of Keymaster's accounts with Dropbox, an online file sharing service. Mr. Aiken discovered, that's the guy who owns 20% and is now allegedly the CEO, that Key utilized the company's Dropbox account to share 3 Dropbox folders that collectively contained almost 200 Keymaster files. The recipients of this information were representatives of Ravensburger and the OP, Keymaster's direct competitors. The first folder shared by Key was entitled Ravensburger's Request. You couldn't have come up with a better name for that. It was shared on May 9th, 2023. The second, so that's after the 4 the 420 date where he pretty much just blew them off, allegedly. The second folder was entitled The Op Document Share and was shared on May 15th, 2023. The third was entitled Royalty Reports and was shared on June 13, 2023. One of the key files shared with direct Keymasters, one of the files key shared with direct Keymasters direct competitors is entitled Parks Portfolio SKU Codes and Unit Cost PDF. So Parks, if you're not familiar, very, very popular. I would say that's their evergreen game. That's without a doubt their baby. That's the one that it just keeps selling and selling and selling. And essentially what he did was give these two companies, or representatives from these two companies, all this valuable information. And this is not allegedly. This one, as we'll talk about when we get to his counterclaim, because right now, once again, we're coming from the perspective of the two people who are trying to get him the hell out of this company. He said, yeah, I did that. I gave them that information. We'll get more into that later. Accordingly, given the file's name, Key gave to Keymaster's direct competitors information regarding Keymaster's cost to produce and sell 1 unit of Parks, the amount of Parks games that had been sold by retailers, the number of games that retailers still had in stock. The third folder, Key shared with Ravensburger and the Op, Keymaster's direct competitors, they like to hammer down that point, at least the lawyer does, was entitled Royalty Reports. Given the file name, this document contained exceedingly confidential financial information. Not just confidential information. They were like, this is exceedingly confidential information regarding contracts with Keymaster Games designers, art licensors, and manufacturers. So pretty much telling everything about how much they're paying people and stuff like that, and just as well as overall revenue, expenses, sales, volumes, and profit margins. All in all, a little over a month, Key shared almost 100 megabytes of Keymaster's data with its most direct competitors, and that's not good. Also, in fairness, he was equal opportunity. He also reached out to Buffalo Games, who does a lot of games. It does some games and targets as well, but apparently they didn't want the information or something. But he did reach out to them. That was very nice of him. So 43. So we got 57. So we're gonna skip to 57 here, because this stuff's kind of like, whatever, it's milquetoast stuff. But down here in 57, Keymaster and the majority members seek reorganization of Keymaster in such a manner so as to divest Key of all membership. So pretty much they're like, we're going to force this guy out because he, shared information with our direct competitors. And that's not ideal. And then once you get to that, we also have, we got a bunch of legal jargon here. And then we have, they have the official, this thing, which is signed by all three of them, and this is the thing where it's like, hey, you won't spend over $100, you won't give out trade secrets and stuff like that without direct consent from everyone in the company. And that's the first part of this lawsuit. That was the lawsuit that was filed by Maddox and Matt against Kyle Key. So Kyle Key came back with, I believe what's called a response. I don't know much about legally things. This was actually kind of fun to read, though. And we're going to jump down to 13, because the first part of this is pretty milquetoast, doesn't really talk about much. But this is where he says the allegations contained in paragraph 13 are admitted. This is where he says, because he did. Most of it was just deny, which obviously if you have a good lawyer, you're probably going to do mostly, especially if it cannot be proven. But 13... he did say this is in fact true, and this is where they're saying that they made that contract in which he signed. Once again, that's kind of hard to say, no, I didn't do that. So the allegations contained in paragraph 13 of the complaint are admitted. Further, Mr. Key avers the language of the operating agreement speaks for itself. So he does admit that this was a thing, they made it, he signed it, and bada boom. And then we go to 37, there's a lot more denied, especially all that bad stuff about like him doing research at the gym. But then we get to 37. The allegations contained in paragraph 37 of the complaint are denied to the extent that, no, Ravensburger and the Op, they're not our competitors, man. No, they're not competitors. He did share the info, though, and said that the info that he shared with them was, of course, in the quote-unquote ordinary course of business. And in fact, quote, it was a benefit of Keymaster. And then I wrote LMAO. Now, I have been in the industry for a very long time. I've never ran a board game company, but I've talked to a lot of people who are in the industry, both on the record, off the record. I do interviews, I go to conventions, I do a podcast with people in that, and I've talked to some people who are now currently in the industry with board game companies, and they pretty much said, one of two things. First, yeah, you wouldn't do that unless you were directly working with a company, especially the information that they were divulging, because it's just not information that you want everybody knowing. And the second possibility is you might give that information if you were hoping to get bought out, which that one I could see potentially being a thing. Also, the allegations contained in paragraph 38, he admitted, so we go down to 38 using our handy dandy lawyering thing. Look at me, so impressive. And 38, once again, was the first, so he shared the files. So he completely admits, yep, I shared the files, I gave the op document share, Ravensburger Press, the royalty reports, all that stuff. He says he shared it. So 40, the allegations contained in paragraph 40. So pretty much this is just saying, no, man, they're not our competition, bro. Yeah, which, I will say, yeah, we're still using this. We're still using this state of Georgia. What are you doing? 69. We're going to 69 next. I will say, it was around this point when I got to his countersuit where I was like, okay, I kind of probably think that the two are right. But anywho, going to 69, the allegations contained in paragraph 69 of the complaint are admitted to the extent that certain information and intellectual property maintained by Keymaster is protected by law or contract and should be considered confidential. Now, this is important because he essentially said that, oh, no, the stuff I'm sharing, is not a big deal. So Keymasters created, generated, or obtained certain intellectual property rights and confidential information that they obviously would not want to share. So he is admitting to some stuff. So we go to 70, true, so he's saying that this part's true, then denied, denied, denied. 74, I put bro, I don't have to respond. Paragraph 74 of the complaint contains only the plaintiff's description of their relief sought and not allegations of fact. And 74 is pursuant to OCG's stuff. Keymaster requests that the court temporarily restrain and preliminary and permanently enjoin Key from, so they're pretty much saying, get him the hell out of this company. We do not want him here. So, that is his response to theirs. But there's another layer to this, because then he has what's called a counterclaim. So they claim something, he responds to it, and now he has the counterclaim. And this is really where I started to lose faith in him. And I'm gonna talk about some numbers. I'm gonna get into the weeds here, and I see why his lawyer and him came up with the argument they did, but I don't think it really holds water. So we start at 15. Mr. Key founded Keymaster with the intention that it would be a family-oriented business which operated on the highest ethical and moral standards. Keymaster's business was the development, production, and offering for... So he's like, this is where he really starts to paint a picture of how ethical he is and how good he is and all this sort of crap. Now we got 17, 18, 19 lumps together, and this is where he just kisses the butt of Kickstarter backers. Oh, we couldn't have done it without the Kickstarter backers. We love them. They made it all possible. They're the public. We'd never want to betray their trust. They're amazing. Blah, blah, blah. We get down to 22, and we needed Kickstarter back then. That's pretty much what he's saying in 22. We needed Kickstarter, because once again, him and his lawyer are trying to paint a very clear picture, which you're going to see as we go through his counterclaim, which I personally think is a load of bull crap, but I'll be more excited to see when this actually goes to court and we get some more details. So we needed Kickstarter back then. Backers are amazing. Once again, just kissing and smooching up to Kickstarter backers. And then in 24, they talk about how Parks on... Over the year that followed, May 19, 2018, Keymaster continued to operate under a free-flowing management style where the members would simply perform the tasks that needed to be completed. So right now he's painting a picture like, we all just worked willy-nilly, we did whatever the hell we wanted. If we want to give information to people, we do it. They didn't say that part, but I feel like that's the picture they're kind of painting there. But then they talk a little bit about Parks and how Parks hit it big, and it's building it, it's getting them millions and millions of dollars of cash flow, which it is. It was a massive success for him. It still is, and I'm pretty sure that one's sold at, I think that's the one that sold at Target, the big box store. But now we get to 28. As a minority member of the limited liability company as of May 2018, Mr. Key could not impose his will upon his fellow members to maintain the ethical and moral principles on which Keymaster was founded. Once again, hammering that ethical drum. We're ethical. I started the company to be ethical. Whatever. Which may be true, but once again, it's all part of, it's a stroke in a painting that him and his lawyer are trying to paint. So then we go to 29, and this is where he talks about how he lost control and Keymaster had quote-unquote irresponsible spending. Now, they'll go a little bit more into detail about this, but this is where he really tries to pivot to paint this picture of why he should get his baby back, despite the fact he no longer has majority ownership of it. Because, I mean, God, have you never watched a movie before? Like, I just can't fathom, like, if I had something like that, ever giving away more than 50% of it. I just can't see it. And maybe they had to do it. I don't know the specifics of it, but it's just... Okay, but he lost control, they had irresponsible spending, and then we get to 30. As millions of dollars in sales flowed for Keymaster, a greater amount of funds flowed out to Keymaster's members, contractors, and service providers. The outflow of funds was highlighted by inappropriately high salaries to its members, wasteful spending on consultants, and paying service providers to perform tasks for which members were already being paid to perform. And I actually have a friend who is someone who has consulted with them, and so I kind of knew that this... I had heard through the grapevine that something was shaken out before it happened. So it was really interesting seeing it come to fruition, or it's about to. So then you go to 31, once again trying to paint the picture of how insufficient they are at running the company and how they had to take out loans in order to maintain operations. But where we really start to get to the crap is when we get to number 32. So he mentions the specific day. Sensing the danger of Keymaster's insolvency and frustrated with Mr. Aiken's creative accounting of matters, on November 4th, 2022, Mr. Key met with Mr. Schuler in person. At this meeting, Mr. Key unequivocally laid out concerns for the future of the company. So he's like, oh, things are going bad, things are going terrible, you have to listen. Now, this is where hopefully their lawyer is like, well, what was going on? Oh, is that when you guys launched that chicken Kickstarter and you were 4 days in and had $97,000 for a relatively small bucks dice game that could potentially become an evergreen game, especially if you look at other games of that ilk? People love little dice games, you know? So it's just odd to me that he's like, oh, the sky is falling, the sky is falling. I mean, we did get $97,000 on this dice game, but the sky is falling. And in case you're wondering, it ended up raising $194,000. But that's neither here nor there. Actually, I guess it kind of is here or there, which is why I mentioned it right there. Okay, so he warned him, it fell on deaf ears. Then we go to 33. Following Mr. Key's blowing the whistles on Keymaster's mismanagement, Mr. Key was constructively and systematically blocked from engaging in the operations of the company. Contrary to the Keymaster operating agreement, Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken unilaterally terminated Mr. Key's salary and falsely accused him of resigning. Because, I don't remember if I mentioned at the beginning, it was said by those two people that he resigned around this time period. Which once again also seems odd as well. Like, you're making $100 on a dice game. Like, I don't know. So he claims, once again, all this, everything I've said, except for the part where he actually did give them that crucial vital information, is hearsay. He said, she said. One, unilaterally terminated Mr. Key's salary and falsely accused him of resigning, instructed Keymaster employees to not communicate with Mr. Key or perform tasks which they traditionally would perform with him. And I'm really interested. I wish I knew someone who was like in the company. I'd love to just, be able to fly along, like, hey, we have a little chat just on the side, I'd love to personally know. Accelerated spending on services for their own benefits, such as expensive executive retreats, and blocking him from accessing Keymaster files. I wonder why they did that, huh? Oh no, that was the year before. I don't know. Anywho. So, now we get to the part where I really, really lost him. It's called Mr. Schuler and Mr. I can't read it, Planned Exploitation of Kickstarter and its Backers. This is where he really, I think, takes a misstep. And I understand why they wanted to paint this picture, but because most likely the judge isn't going to know a damn thing about Kickstarter and board games and this and that and the other thing. But you, being in the know on the Kickstarter, I want to let me know in the comments below, does this next part ring incredibly insincere? Because it really does for me. So we start at 34. So planned exploitation of Kickstarters and its backers. Oh, actually, excuse me. We're going to jump to 37/38. Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken proceed as they plan to do. They will be attempting to abuse the Kickstarter model for the purpose of exploiting backers. Just to remind you, this is the same person that ran 9 Kickstarter projects 9 Kickstarter projects. He's like, no, this 10th one, they're just abusing the system. And this is the part where I literally laughed out loud. I was like, oh, this guy's a clown. Like, come on. Like, as someone who is in the know on Kickstarter, like, really, this is your defense? The 10th time, that's abusing the system. The first 9, though, yeah, we had to do that. It gets worse, though. The goal of their exploitation is to collect enough funds to support their reckless, frivolous spending. I will say, though, their prices on Harvest are god-awful. Like, it's the reward, like, there's a $150 pledge for what is clearly not a $150 game. But once again, that's just business as usual as Kickstarter. I'm not going to get on that soapbox right now. So Mr. Key has objected to Mr. Schuler and Mrs. Aiken plan to launch a Kickstarter campaign to fund their unfettered spending. No. It's actually to fund the game, which is currently on Kickstarter right now and has already raised $268,000 in like the first 3 days. Or as he likes to put it, their unfettered spending. I wonder if he thought of that one up at the gym. Ooh, rim shot. I don't know if I used that expression right, but it felt good. Anywho, continuing on. So we go to 39. That's the next one. So Mr. Key does not desire to see Kickstarter backers provide their funds to Keymaster under Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aker's guise of product development, when in reality the funds will only go to benefit them personally. In the past 5 years, Keymaster has only produced 1 new title, Chicken, which is yet to be commercially available. So this is once again where they lose me even more, because yes, it's kind of technically true, but not really. Because if you look at what they've done in the last 5 years, they did a reprint of Parks, they did an expansion to Parks, and then they actually did 3 standalone strategic games, which kind of, I think, means he's lying here. Just has only produced 1 new title. I guess he's trying to say that Parks, since but it's a standalone, so I'd say it's a new title. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. Either way, he knows what they've produced, and he intentionally made that very misleading. Oh, and by the way, that project raised $578,000. He failed to mention that part. The other thing they did was they redid Caper, which, by the way, great little game. You should check out Caper, and I imagine Caper Europe, which also raised $242,000, despite the fact it's a relatively small box 2-player card game. Okay, so his all this talk about running the company, it's like, really? Okay, why don't you settle down there, son? You made $578,000, $242,000. If that's running your company into the ground, I think most Kickstarter companies would sign up for that. Okay, and this is where I actually put F you. Like, come on. With reasonable and rational spending, Keymaster is capable of sustaining itself. This sustainability is possible based on the earlier supported backers and maintenance of cash cow title. Rather than choose moderation and a conservative approach to business decision, Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken chose to treat Kickstarter's backers as a golden goose. Quote, of which they have. What quote is that? Whose quote is that? Is it because he said it? Did they say it? Like, whatever. Of which they have little concern for as long as it supports their spending. Mr. Key objects and desires to return Keymaster to being a family-oriented business, not scallywags trying to take your Kickstarter money, despite the fact he's done that 9 times. Well, 8 times successfully. 1 of them failed. Which might be why they brought on those 2 people. But, whoa, that's not what we're talking about here. Key doesn't want to talk about that, so let's just keep on trucking. Yeah, this is really where I was like, really? I lost all belief in him. Which, hey, it might still be true. I could be completely wrong. But the picture he tries to paint, I think, it looks pretty crappy. Okay, so then we get to 41. Through their acts and omissions, Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken have 1. Breached their contractual agreement with Mr. Key, 2. Breached their fiduciary duties to Keymaster, and 3. Are prepared to harm potential backers on Kickstarter. Like, come on, man. Really? And now you see why we painted such a glowing picture of all those Kickstarter backers, how much we loved them and needed them, and how much the other Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken just want to take advantage of them, which is, once again, completely different from what we did the first 9 times when I was with the company. It's totally different. Yeah. Okay, and then we get to 44, and this is where I put the play. Under the plain language of the Keymaster operating agreement, here throw it to Exhibit A. Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken expressly agreed to be bound by the terms of the agreement. Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken nevertheless committed numerous acts and omissions in the direct violation of the Keymaster thing. Yeah, so pretty much he's just saying, hey, I want to get them out. I don't know why I put the play here. 44C. Oh, here it is. Engaging in acts making it impossible to carry on the ordinary business of the company is provided by Article 4, Section 4.2 by siphoning substantially all funds from Keymaster themselves and for their own benefit. So that's what that's pretty much the counter. It's like, oh no, we can't run the company because they're spending so much money. And maybe they are. I hope that he has all the receipts. I hope I make a follow-up video where I say, Key was totally right. Yeah, he handled it a little bit weird, and I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't think I'll probably have to, but hey, stranger things have happened. And the last thing I have here is 70, which I put, wow, they did some bad stuff too, because this feels like when my children are like, yeah, I punched him in the face because he ate my cracker. And this is where he's like talking about like, oh, when Mr. Schuler and Mr. Aiken have represented that Mr. Key is not permitted to use his personal work product, Mr. Schuler freely uses his work product and profits from its use outside of Keymaster. He talked about how they like used, Schuler created artwork using Keymaster resources without compensating Keymaster. Pretty much a bunch of ticky-tack stuff, which sure, maybe is a big deal to somebody, but at the end of the day, I don't think it's nearly the smoking gun of, hey man, they're not our competitors. Ravensburger's not our competitor. The Op's not our competitor. Apparently Buffalo Games must have been their competitor. Maybe that's why I didn't give them the information. I don't want to speculate, though. But that's what's happening with Keymaster Games. And it, final thoughts on it. Would I be worried about Harvest? No, not really. I wouldn't back that $149 pledge level because, dear God, they are just screwing you over. Because, once again, it's a small box game. And I know they redesigned it, and I'm going to get off this soapbox. But I would not, if you're watching this video because you're like, I don't know if I should back because maybe they're going to go out of business because of Harvest, I wouldn't be potentially worried. I have a feeling whoever wins this, and I'm gonna place my bets right now and say the two dudes as opposed to the one dude, they're going to want to keep this. I mean, they're going to make $300,000 to $500,000 on this. You think they're going to be like, no, poo-poo, we don't want that. I'm sure if Key gets the company, he'll somehow find a way to make it seem like that the Kickstarter backers aren't getting screwed over. Yeah. But anywho, I thought that was kind of interesting, so I thought I'd bring it to your eye holes. But that has been Bauer's News Corner. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this. And as always, if you ever have some sort of interesting tabletop game news story, let me know, because I kind of like covering this kind of stuff. And I read my first legal documents, 2 of them. Boy, howdy. And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube. Bye-bye.